and this is the I Know Right
Podcast.
And who are you?
I am George.
And what's your name?
My name's Norma Hernandez.
We have another very special guest with us today. If you saw our previous episode, we had Julian, and as I mentioned before, I really want to use our platform to bring awareness to topics that we usually don't talk about on this podcast or maybe in your inner circle. So I had a gym teacher, Miss Nancy. Yes, Miss Nancy. I love her. Actually, somebody was very surprised that I see her at Target and like she still calls me Susie Q. Okay, aww. But she's the first person that ever called me that. But anyhow, she. Like, I had big plans for my life, like in 7th grade or whatever, right? As you should. But I remember she was like, well, you have all these big plans to change the world. You have to start with your neighborhood. And I was like, nice. Lame, you know. But now I see that that's true because we just had a huge discussion here on fitness because the CrossFit Open's done and all that stuff. But that's how I'm making an impact. That's how I choose to make an impact would be through the gym. Mm-hmm. And this is my neighborhood, right? Mm-hmm. So George does it with his videography all in the Chicagoland area and all that stuff. That's how you are creating an impact. Mm-hmm. And here we have Norma. What's up? All right, Norma, tell us why you're here, though. Tell us what's going on in your life.
Yeah, no, thank you. I really like how you framed it, like really making an impact in your neighborhood with your own expertise, right, in a sense. So part of like how I wanted to create an impact in my neighborhood was initially growing up in Melrose Park and being born and raised here.
MP.
Right. Repping all day. Also repping Proviso East because, understanding being from Melrose Park, mostly Mexican elementary schools and then going to Proviso East. And understanding like how there was always like this racial divide when we should really be allies and being able to teach each other the skill set of how Black and Brown solidarity is important. I feel that having that understanding, coming out of Proviso East and really forming my own educational experience that I had a really difficult time obtaining. Mm-hmm. But I ended up going for my master's in urban planning and policy and became a community planner. Mm-hmm. So going back to neighborhood change, a lot of it is because we should really be getting involved in our neighborhoods. And
so basically, Norma's a bad bitch. Okay, that's the bottom line. Like, if I want someone, and not just me, but anyone in the Wolf Pack, the 7:30 p.m. class, want to school someone on something, we're like, Norma, reply to this person on Facebook. Wow. We're like, Norma, this person's saying this. Like, we have the thoughts and we have pretty much the same views because of how we grew up. Right. But like, she can really frame it better, but I'm about to like just kill someone. Okay. But I do want to mention that for the people that don't realize what Melrose Park or Proviso East is like. Melrose Park, I would say when we were little kids, there was still a very huge divide between the Italians and Mexican side. Right. I would say that once I got to like high school, and so like normal like grade school or so middle school, it kind of blurred a little bit. The divide's less. It's still there, but the divide is less. So yeah, your grade school, like she went to Stevenson, I went to Melrose Park School. Those would be the two main Mexican schools.
Yeah, neighborhood schools.
Yeah, you'd have a couple of like whites and then you'd have a couple of Black people, but really like not enough to where you're engulfed in their culture, right? I didn't know more than like the Mexican stuff that I already knew growing up. We all grew up the same. And then you go to Proviso East. And I'm going to say, like, a lot of people put Proviso East down.
Oh, yeah.
Right? It's, like, not a good school, et cetera, et cetera. I am so happy with my education from Proviso East, not to mention that I was exposed and immersed into Black culture, where otherwise I would not know that. And I wouldn't know, like, their day-to-day life and all that stuff. It's so easy to judge from the outside if you don't know. But the fact that we were literally like your first day of school, you're like, okay, this is what's happening, you know?
Right, yeah. There's a fight down the corner of the hallway.
and then you're immersed and you're just in it.
Right.
And you have the option of disassociating or you have the option of educating yourself. And so I'm very happy with my education from Proviso East. I think it's like we're ahead of the game, right?
Yeah.
People really don't know.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that and I think it's interesting when us being Mexicanas and coming from like a public school system in Melrose, that was, you saw it shift from like being predominantly white to like once I got to middle school, which was like the late 1990s, where those like there was more Latinos coming into the area, the population dynamics were shifting. And you're seeing more Latinos in your classes, and you're seeing less white. So you're being in that moment of like transition within your classmates. So now you're in a public school system, graduating 8th grade with mostly Mexicans, and then going into a high school that's predominantly black at the time, then having to learn how to assimilate yourself. And then once I graduated from there and I left Trent College and I went to Aurora University to get my bachelor's, it was predominantly white. Ooh, so I had to tough. Like again relearn because now you're used to going to school with Mexican classmates, and now you're in a blend with Mexicans and blacks. But then now you have to like change your course again because now you're in a private white school, which I love that school. I met really great people there. I had really great teachers, but just like understanding what that feels like was really.
It's tough.
It's interesting to like shift your code switching happens all the time.
Code switching is really tough.
It's tough.
It is. Oh. If there's one thing I could wish to never do in my life would be to code switch. I hate doing it.
You know what? Now, honestly, it's funny because now I think it should be more of a norm. And I always go back to this meme of when like President Trump, at the time, 45, and now President Biden had the debate. And there was like a meme that said, we had presidential debate where they acted ghetto. Please don't tell me to code switch again.
Yeah.
Because like how bad was that? So and you're telling me how to code switch.
Some people may not know what code switching is. So I ended up going to a white college too, and to me that was like, okay, what the heck? Like this is too different. Like I would rather go from Mexican to black, to back to Mexican to something else than to go to a white school ever again. To be honest. But code switching is when you change the way you speak depending on the people you're around. So that's what code switching is. A lot of people don't know. I can code switch like no one's business. I hate it though. Like I want you all to understand that when I stop talking like Susie, my soul's dead inside. It is. It honestly is. And so you'll often find me like stepping away and stepping back from the conversation, which is not good for me because it doesn't allow me to really engage and show the things that I know, or to really relate with people, which they might be awesome people. But when I have to code switch, I'm like, oh no, this isn't me. And I have to take a step back.
Yeah, no, it is. Especially like when you're in a professional setting with like my work and you're speaking to like professors and you're speaking to like deans and scholars, and you have to change how you speak. And that takes it's like a learning experience to know how to switch right away. And then now you're like professional mode. And then now you're with your coworkers. So you can go back to regular speaking mode. But yeah, it's like a skill set that I think that gets undervalued too. But it comes with like experiencing with different cultures.
So let me ask, like, so why would you say, cause you said like you would need to, right? Like why would you need to, like, what does it hold us back? Because if we don't code switch, does it like what are reasons?
I think it's stereotypes. I think that like for example, even like clothes culture, like I can't go to an office wearing Air Force Ones and jeans and this, but you could have the CEO doing a lot of mafia dirty stuff behind closed doors, and for some reason they're judging my shoes and I won't get that job. But you have your actual like people in power who are doing way messier things that should be more looked down on than people worrying about what someone of color is wearing to that meeting.
Right. So someone like me, like I would say like I would try to force that into the system. You know what I mean? I would try to like force the Tims into the system. You know, I would try to force into that culture or into that style. You know, and that's why like I'm saying like I understand code switching and I've done it before, and just for like jobs and stuff like that. But like for somebody like that, I would rather like not get the job and then change or code switch. You know what I mean? Like so like.
Well, it's like I think that unfortunately, because of the society that we're in, we have to code switch. There's no way I'm going to get a really good paying professional job if I don't fit that part of like whatever that status quo is, you know, and that's the unfortunate part, because we have people like myself who come from areas that this is your language, this is your culture. Right. Now I have to kind of conform to that upscale elite whatever job that I want and tailor it to whatever their norms are.
It's literally being bilingual. Yeah. I mean, a lot of times, like, I consider myself a well-versed person, someone that can speak very well in English, Spanish, but then, like, I also have to recognize that I can also speak in different ways. I can speak in African American vernacular English. I can speak in, you know, what would be considered corporate white language as well. And that sometimes, like, I'm speaking to a regular person, I'm like, my mind goes, because it's like, what language am I supposed to be speaking? It literally happens in real time, and I'm like, oh, never mind, I don't know what I'm supposed to say right now, because my mind's working all the time on which language I'm speaking, right? So it is something that we don't really talk about, or we don't really think about. It's a skill set, like she said, to have the ability to code switch and speak differently. It's a different language. I mean, most of us started off only speaking Spanish at home, and then you start learning how to speak English with your friends and all that stuff. So
turn into Spanglish.
Correct. And that's a whole different thing on its own. But yeah, Norma definitely knows her stuff. So Norma, who, yes, is all about, actually, you know what's so funny though, and I still haven't done this, and like, you're doing your dreams and I haven't even started mine. When Norma, I mean, I guess, right? But like my passion project. So Norma, when she was doing foundations, which are the classes before,
way back.
Remember? I had to do one of her foundations. I think like Rocio couldn't do it or something. And I was like, what do you do? And she was telling me, I was like, oh, that's so cool. I'm like, I want to do a community garden.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
I'm like, that's my dream, to have a community garden. And I was like, I want to do it in Maywood. And she's like, let's do it. I still haven't done it. Hopefully by next year for sure. But to me, I was like, okay, awesome. Because it's those little things that impact neighborhoods and communities that, you know, make the difference in someone's everyday life. Right. And anytime I've brought it up to multiple people. Not everyone has this opinion, but most people are like, why Maywood? And I'm always like, why not? I don't get it. Like, why wouldn't I? It's literally right across the tracks from where I live. It is still my community, right? And I think that a lot of times we like to feel like, no, there still is a divide. That's them. Yeah. This is us. And what Norma is doing is that she is actually running for office, and where she is servicing the whole greater community. Please talk about the neighborhoods and exactly what post this is.
No, thank you. So I decided to run for a position that I think is really impactful and meaningful, but it doesn't get a lot of recognition, or like just in general, people don't know that this is a position that you can elect people for. But I decided to run for our community college, Triton College board trustee position.
I love Triton.
Everybody went to Triton, like literally everybody I know.
I could go there tomorrow.
Went to Triton.
I'll take another class. I've taken classes after I was done with Triton, because I'm like, I'll just take one more class. I love Triton so much.
It's like the affordable college for us, affordable, limited, you know, like us people that actually don't have the accessibility to like pay for university level tuition, or our parents don't even know what that looks like, so they kind of fear us from actually going to like these big university colleges, because they're like, no, just go to Triton, it's right here, you know. That's literally how our culture is. Like, go to what's close to you and do that, and
don't try something new,
right? Don't pursue your dreams.
The quote in Spanish is like, más vale bueno, más vale malo por conocido que bueno por conocer.
Right, yeah.
Which means like, stick with what you know, because you know what's out there, and even if it's bad, just stick with what you know.
That's very true. And I'm someone that, even from growing up, I've always been like the black sheep of the family. So just always like expanding, doing the opposite that my parents wanted me to do. Which I'm so grateful now, because I'm like, see, if I would have listened to you guys, I probably wouldn't be where I'm at. Right. But so like when I finished my grad school program, and I've been working at UIC for like 3 years now, part of my work is to do research on how to like rebuild Chicago's civic infrastructure. How do we have a more participatory democracy? How can we engage youth in like democratic action with CPS, students, and like working with CPS's, the Department of Social Science and Civic Engagement, and understanding like why people don't vote. We literally don't vote because our civic infrastructure has been dismantled by our government system since like after the Civil War to get us from not voting. So like this is stemmed very deep. So when I started doing research within my own community and understanding like the dynamics within the board leadership that we have at Triton, and seeing how our resources are not really being used to their full potential, and understanding the impacts of like systematic racism to a certain extent, where when you don't fund youth programs and educational resources, you're really holding people back from achieving a better life. So when I started doing more of that research and understanding Triton College is a Hispanic serving institution, we have no representation in any admin level or board trustee level. They're taking away more resources from our Latino community. And then our Latino people are the ones that are technically struggling more with this pandemic economically. I was like, nah, I need to run. This is wrong. So I decided to kind of step up to the plate. And because I come from this background of like community planning, research work, also being a social worker, understanding what that looks like, because I used to work in the South Side as a social worker in the West Inglewood community, and just all around the South Side, I just felt like, man, this is systematic racism in our backyard.
Yeah.
And so many of us don't even have that idea until we have riots happening and people want to criticize the riots but are not understanding the generational impacts of what happens when you reduce our resources, right? So I'm like, let me run on these issues. I think our community should be aware of like who runs our educational institutions. So I decided to run, and I've been getting a lot of support from different like organizations, from different educators, and all around people that want to see more progressive change in our community. So I felt like, coming from Proviso East, understanding the dynamics of the Proviso Township, like this is the area where we should have more of those resources.
Correct.
More of those educational pipelines within like elementary school, high schools, and Triton, and how Triton can serve a lot of those, or help fund some of those.
Sure.
And I know these are like long-term goals, right? This isn't something, you're going to get elected, you're just a 2-year seat, which is true. But I mean, like understanding that there's so much potential that our community should be fighting for these resources, right? We should be advocating and asking more from our leaderships from these positions. Why are we not having stronger programs? So I decided to run, and I've been getting a lot of support from people that didn't even know this election existed. But I'm like, everybody goes to Triton. Y'all need to know.
It existed just because I knew a white man that was on the board. He's awesome, but like at the same time, I was like, I didn't even know that was a thing. That was maybe like 10 years ago or so. But it is definitely a newer thing for me to know someone that's running, and B, for it to be someone of color, right? So what kind of challenges has that brought to you? Because while we have mentioned we went to a majority black high school, we went to majority Mexican great schools, we grew up in the same neighborhood, everything, but all of our officials are not of color.
Right.
So let us know some challenges that you have faced in the last few weeks, couple months, that you have been now canvassing, doing all your, political stuff. Yeah.
A lot of the challenges that I have been facing is reaching out to like different leadership and sometimes not getting a response, and also trying to not take it personal because so many campaigns are happening right now that I'm one of the many campaigns that's happening right now that they're worrying about their own, campaigns and stuff. So, and I think that another issue is like understanding this is supposed to be a nonpartisan position, meaning there's no Republican or Democrat. It's supposed to be neutral, and it's not. It's literally both. You either on one side, you either on this machine or that machine. And I'm coming in as an independent, like progressive candidate that is not really, that is like not touching either side. I'm literally just trying to stay neutral because no one is really looking out for the students, right? Everybody kind of has their own political agenda, and it's like I don't have that agenda. My agenda is literally like, man, we want at least a voice in this board, and it's like we have to literally work this hard just to get one voice. It's not the majority still. And that's a challenge because at the end of the day, even if I get elected, it's not like I can bring transformational change because I'm still that one representative. But at least now they have someone that they're forced to listen to in that table, bringing in those data of like why we need more more representation within hiring, why we need to have more money allocated to these specific neighborhoods. So I think that overall the challenge is being an independent candidate and just not really trying to, and then also my messaging, because I'm coming off a very strong message of like, there's been a lot of corruption, there's been a lot of like exploitation of resources. I'm really saying those things out loud.
I'm sure that makes you unpopular.
Yeah, and that makes that, and or just people just don't want to bother, you know, because it's it's like very touchy. But at the end of the day, like our community needs to know. I mean, we see what inequalities are like really bad now, right? This pandemic has shown how bad these inequalities are. It's not like I'm saying anything that's not true.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's crazy. So, how did your family feel about you doing this?
Well, now they're like, whoa. Well, initially, it's funny because my parents are some of the smartest people I know in my life. Like, you don't have to have a degree to be a genius. Correct. You know, that's one thing that I for sure know. And they also like, and one of the challenges I think for us being of like Mexicanas and just of color, like our parents don't have these high elite educational backgrounds. Like my parents have a second and sixth grade education. So just finishing college was like, yay, like you did it. But it's like, you still got career, you still, and then because I ended up going to school, back to school to get a master's, they kind of got lost already with like, yeah, I just know she's doing this and I know she's doing that. And that's all they know. Like they don't really understand like the deeper meaning of that. Right. And even with this position, now they're seeing the meaning of it because I'm getting a lot of support. Like I got endorsed by Troy Garcia, which was really huge.
Oh, nice. That's awesome.
And I got endorsed by like all these other elected officials that now know who I am and like know my platform. And I'm just like, wow, like little me, right? Who would have thought? And my mom is just like, no, pues yo no sé, yo sé que está haciendo algo para la escuela de train. And that's all like, but they're over there at the grocery store like handing out my flyers. Nice. They're saying like vote for my daughter, so they get it, but they really don't understand like how. Yeah. How impactful I have
one in my car. I got it in the mail.
Oh yeah, we had mailers.
It was so awesome. I was like, "What's up, Norma?"
It's weird. It's super weird. It's funny because I never like expected to be doing something like this. And especially when you come from like a high school where you're told like, don't bother, just stay doing this keep doing the minimal. It's nice seeing why it's good to not always like listen to other people who want to just give you like the basic general advice. Like, no, you follow your own advice and you keep going.
Correct. So how hard is it to, because I mean honestly, to tell you the truth, like we were talking a little bit about it before the podcast is like, and I was like, oh, politics, like I'm not a big politics kind of guy, but for instance, like in the Latino community, it's hard enough to get somebody to vote for president, you know, and now for a trustee of trying like, for someone like me, like I'm thinking like, oh, it's a small position, right? But you could probably do a lot of things, good things. How hard is it to educate the people, and are you specifically targeting like older or maybe the younger people that might be like progressive, like you said, or like how's that opened up for you?
No, and so part of like what we're trying to get the Latino vote, that the Latino voters that don't normally vote. And I think that like there's like a misconception of like, oh, the presidential race is huge. Obviously it is. You have to vote for the presidential race. But I personally feel like these local elections are bigger than the actual presidential elections, because you see that immediate impact once you actually vote for someone or not. And I'm also someone that was like, oh, I don't like to get political. I don't want to be in politics as a politician. But at the same time, like to me, I feel like grassroots change begins with changing our education system, our quality education. And if we can teach young people how to advocate for themselves and provide that like historical political education of like why local elections matter, that's where like the real change comes in. And we're missing a lot of that. And it's like right now, like when I talk to my family and talk to my aunts and uncles that are like don't even know, I'm like, yeah, we're like, I start to teach them like why this is important. Like you have like me being at Train at the time, working 2 jobs, my parents working 2 jobs, everybody's working all crazy, and then here I am paying cash for my tuition, to go there. But then you have these administrators making so much money and are not working anywhere near as much as us. you know, and like not on, and how to like we're paying them to literally not work as hard as we're working.
Yeah.
And that's what I get to, like, that's what people be like, oh, I should be voting for this, because that's the truth. Like, you're literally paying, we're over here getting exploited by our labor, intentionally not being taught these things through education, because they're purposely not teaching those things because they're in control of what's being taught. You know, so they're intentionally oppressing us because there's no one in these positions of power that are truly trying to like help and build people up through education, because it's all controlled. So it's like understanding, having those conversations, and people are actually like resonating to it because they're seeing like, holy shit, you're right.
Yeah, that's so crazy.
That's super crazy. Yeah.
So now that you're immersed in this, like, there's no turning back. Right? Like, it is like full force, Norma, for Triton. Let's go.
Vote for me.
Vote for you. Chuy Garcia's got your back. You know, like, I've got your mailer in the mail. It's in my car. Your parents are handing out flyers at the grocery store. Like, how much pressure do you feel? Right? Because I would feel like I'm trying to do good. I'm trying to help my people, and not just my people, but the people in this community.
Right.
Even the people that don't know or maybe don't look like me, to be more aware of how things can be better.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, how much pressure are you under right now?
Yeah, no, it's a lot of pressure. And I think that, like, I also, you know, if I get elected, I don't intend on being like, oh my gosh, we need to change. No, like, I don't intend on having like conversations where we're not communicating well, where like my peers, right, my other colleagues that are in the administration, like, I want this to be an educational experience for them to understand, like, these were my experiences coming here as someone that it came with parents who are immigrants, someone that didn't know English was not my first language. Like, understanding lived experiences matter, and just having them to hear our side, because, you know, right now they don't have anyone that's gone through a lot of these issues that we have gone through, and that many of the students that go there can relate. But the pressure is super high. You know, coming into this, I had no idea that it was going to be, you know, this political, or that it was going to be this intense. So I really came in here blindly with that. But now that I'm in it like this, now I just want to win, because I think our community deserves it. I think that our Latino population deserve it. I think that it's a more sense of like being fearless about why this is really important during a moment of pandemic, in the pandemic era where a lot of our communities are hurting. And just getting the all around support from different elected officials across the city has been very good, and feeling the pressure, it has gotten less, because I see like it really takes a village to support candidates, local 100%. Candidates like that. And I have really been conditioned with an amazing village of people. So it has helped alleviate some of that pressure. But
all right, that's awesome. Yeah, because I have to admit, like, to me, it's like it's a huge undertaking. Yes. Right? It's not like you're just like, I'm trying to be in the spotlight. I want the clout. I want to win, right? It's like you're trying to make sustainable foundational change for the future trustees of Triton, for the future, you know, board member of whatever. You know what I mean? Like, so I would take that as a huge undertaking. So I'm very proud of the fact that you fearlessly, honestly, because even if you have fear, it's still fearlessness, because I wouldn't do it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I honestly would not, because I feel like it's huge. You know, so to have someone that has the guts and the friggin' balls, honestly, to do it is awesome, right? So, like, let's talk about this. When is the election, first of all?
Yeah, so the election,
so we can vote.
Election day is April 6th, but you can actually start voting now. So early voting started on March 22nd, and I cover several townships.
Correct. So go ahead, name them.
I cover Leiden Township, I cover Proviso Township, I cover Oak Park Township, River Forest Township. Also, I cover Norridge area. I cover Schiller Park. I cover Rosemont as well, Riverside. Yeah. So it's a pretty huge, 25 suburbs. Huge. It's a huge area. It's a huge area. And I think that, but even though it's a huge area, predominantly of the students that attend there are of color. And I think a lot of that is because a lot of students like myself coming from East, getting really low test scores, Trine is kind of like the school that you lean on, because that's like you get your quick 2 years gen ed or whatever, it's cheaper. And we're the taxpayers that are paying these institutions to help provide these quality resources. We should be able to benefit from that and not get robbed away from that.
Correct.
You know, because we're literally paying these institutions. Us of color are literally getting no representation in these institutions, and that's important.
And when you say getting robbed, like what are these kind of robbed?
Oh yeah, like when I say robbed, I mean, like, for example, we had Nuevos Horizontes, right?
Oh yes.
They took that away.
Oh man,
Wait,
you just brought back a memory.
Yeah,
so Nuevos Horizontes is a community center we had in Melrose Park.
What was it called again? I'm sorry.
Nuevos Horizontes. Okay, and it was a really awesome place. Like everyone went there. Like you could learn there. You could take English classes, and they were free.
GED.
Get your GED. They had kids programs. I learned how to make a piñata there. I learned how to make a piñata. That's like a memory that you just unlocked a memory, Norma. Oh my God, that's awesome. I'll teach you guys at some point. You just you just need a balloon and some, I learned how to make glue.
Paper.
Yeah. Yes, I did. I learned how to make glue. So anyway, you just really unlocked that memory, like level unlocked. But anyhow, so we had it for so long. One of my cousins actually worked there too, and it was like a staple of the Melrose Park community. Like you would go there. It really gave people the opportunity to be like, okay, like so and so's parents were going there to learn English. So and so's older brother was going there to get their GED. So and so was taking an art class there, your friend or whatever. So it was a really big staple of the community, and it got taken away.
So that's the robbing.
So it's like so for example, resources like that can get easily taken away. People were fighting against that.
It was hard. It was tough.
But and Melrose Park is predominantly Latino.
Yeah.
And so many people were benefiting from that I know personally. Here's another person. Like that and then when you take away resources like that for reasons that I don't think was worth it, is problematic because it goes back to like you're cutting access of education to marginalized communities. And then you're also having capital projects in the millions for other things that are like aesthetics, but you're paying for aesthetic projects like a nice stair place that's like millions of dollars, right? But you're cutting resources centers like the Nuevos Horizontes. And and that's very impactful when you think about it 5 years from now, 5 to 10 years from now, because you're not engaging youth, you're not engaging residents to have a better quality of life. Like all of that goes back to like you're really oppressing communities without the right intentions.
Correct, man. That was like a really tough time. I honestly feel like I blocked that memory because of the fact that it was so tough. My sister-in-law learned how to speak English there. Like it was so vital to our little nucleus of Melrose Park. And for it to be taken away, like I really don't hear now that I think about it, I don't really hear, oh, my parents are learning English anywhere, or like I don't hear that. Right. But like when we were growing up, that was the thing. Like I heard that often, like, oh yeah, my mom's taking English classes or etc. And that's not happening anymore. And because it's been like 12, 15 years,
I think
maybe.
2014 was when it did.
Yeah, like since it's been taken away, and that's so unfortunate, but it's very true because they didn't replace it with anything.
Right.
And at the end of the day, we really don't know where that money went to. We're not going into the buildings that are benefiting from them taking away this community center.
Yeah, and it's keeping our colored people down, right? That's what it's usually doing.
And I think that's like, when people say like, are you scared? It's like, man, it's like, why should I have to feel scared to do the right thing?
Right.
Why should I have to feel scared that we just want a representation in our community voices? Like, that's literally wholeheartedly what it is. Like, we shouldn't have to be fearful to stand up for what we think is right and wrong. We're educated enough to understand what these systems are like and how they function. So why should I feel silenced because what you're doing is wrong? That's ultimately what it is. And I genuinely feel that way. And that's what keeps me fearless because, I don't think anyone is better than me. I don't care what level of education you are or have or whatever. But at the same time, like, let's be honest, if I'm going to be running for this position, it's because I have the intentions for what I'm running for. And we need to start, like, owning people that are in those spaces and actually give them our vote because they actually care about community.
Yeah. And it's nice to educate the people that we need that voice, like you said. When you ever get the question of scared, is it more like have you ever like people don't like the system to be shaken up? You know what I mean? Like, is there that fear there too? You know what I mean? Like
no, and it's like like there is that fear, but I always try to center myself of like I'm really just trying to like bring a voice to our Latino community. You know, like I shouldn't be scared about that. I shouldn't be scared about just wanting to have a fair, just system. You know, like that's just like part of that is like change never happened if you didn't have to do something different to change it. And it's like many of our rights were literally fought for. They were never given to us.
Correct.
Like, hey, that's an awesome here you go. No, our rights have always been fought for in every single level and any time. Even like with UIC having like cultural centers here, they fought for those spaces. Literally, activists for years and years have fought for those spaces, like the Latino Cultural Center at UIC, that made me feel like I had a home going to UIC. That, you know, like you have the Asian Cultural Center, you have the African American, like you have all these cultural centers that ultimately bring in solidarity. We should be having those spaces at Triton. We should really be having those spaces that really bring in students, and you actually can profit from that. Triton can actually profit and engage more students in there and actually capitalize off of that. Everybody literally wins. You know what I'm saying? Like everybody literally wins, and we need to like actually embrace that and capitalize off that and have everybody win.
But not everyone wants everyone to win.
That's true. That's true.
That's beautiful. That's not beautiful, but what I'm saying is what you're saying. It's nice because I know my cousin, he helped do the cultural center at not NIU, Northeastern Illinois. So he helped build that one.
Wow.
So and what I was telling you earlier, like I think he went to school for the same exact thing that you went to.
Interesting.
So he helped do that nice. Cultural center there. So that's awesome.
Oh.
Yeah. So all right. So tell us, what are like the next steps? What are your steps from here until Election Day, because we're about 2 weeks away.
10 days. I'm counting because I cannot wait to have my day off.
10 days, you know, like countdown.
No.
Yeah. What are the next steps? What, like, tell people what it's like. Norma is not working right now. She is taking like a little break from work because she's so busy. And she campaigning, and like she's taking a break from the gym because this is obviously how we know her. She's a member of the gym, been a member for a couple of years, very consistent to the I haven't seen her in a month or so.
Like, I know, it really
or whatever. It's over a month. So tell us what your day to day is like, so people know like you're out there.
No,
we out here.
We out here for real. I've been putting in the work for. I haven't had a day off in over 2 months. It's been insane. So I was working full time. I do research at UIC, called Great Cities Institute, and I had to take time off. A lot of my work already is working with elected officials, so I knew already like the behind the scenes of what it takes to be an elected official. I just now it's different though when you're actually the elected official. But my day to day work literally is like I'm either canvassing, I'm talking to other leaders to gain their support. I'm going to events, meetings, with like different, like if there's certain events happening and I know there's going to be people there, I try to like go Zoom. I try to virtually go because I have to like get my name out there. I have to expose myself, which is very weird of me to do because I'm someone that's like, I want to be behind the scenes. I don't like getting the center of attention. I hate public speaking. I hate like having to sell myself. I'd rather just be like low key, just grind.
You're such a good public speaker though, Norma.
Do like my work. Oh, man, girl, it took me a long. It took training too. A lot of this was also training.
Speech class at Triton.
I did take speech at Triton. Actually.
Everyone takes speech.
That was one of the first classes I took.
I love it.
So now it's like just basically going to the poll place, engaging with people that are also there, handing out pass palm cards. So yeah, canvassing, talking to voters, going to a lot of meetings. I had a meeting yesterday that ended at 9:00, and I was like, this is my life. Friday night, ending meetings at 9 p.m. But it's a lot of work, man. It's a lot of work. And again, it goes back to it takes this much work to just get a like voice at the table.
Honestly, to just like move a pebble.
Yeah, to literally like a little grain of salt. And that's the like the sad part is that man, we shouldn't have to fight this hard, but we literally have to. And I always go back to like the African American struggle and how much they have literally already opened the door for our culture to already like be in situations like this, to be able to take on these positions, because they've already opened the door for us, like the civil rights movement that was literally led by Martin Luther King and so many other women that have fought for this. But yeah, no, it's a lot of work.
I think it's like if you're a person of color, or if you're a person that's not of color, but aware of things, that doing like how we mentioned, like literally she has to do all this work to move a pebble in a stream, right? It's like one grain of salt out of like trillions, right? But like doing something so small, like correcting someone when they say something just wrong, right? Or defending, you know, the like nuevos horizontes, even though you had nothing to do with it. Like those little things are impactful, even if they don't cause a change. If you make one person realize like, oh man, like that stuff's important and we're ignoring it, or yeah, we do need someone of color in representation, or man, if I buy more from places that are people of, you know, owned by people of color, it makes a huge difference. And I actually because again, back to the quotes, it gets exhausting. Yes. It gets exhausting. So I was actually talking to somebody about this, and I'm part of a mastermind group of gym owners.
Oh, cool.
And it's tough because I have to speak as a white male, and I am not a white male. Okay. All of these gym owners are over the age of 40, and they're white men, and it's like 10 of them. So for maybe like 2 months, I was not joining in on these meetings, and I have to be honest, because I was like, I don't want to talk to them. Their problems are not my problems. My gym problems are not the same as their problems. Their gyms are in lucrative, high earning demographic areas. Mine is not. I'm in a Latino, person of color centered demographic, where people are not very high earners, or the people of color are not very high earners, and the people not of color are high earners. And so like the problems that they talk about don't resonate with me, to be honest. And so like going on these calls, I'm just like, but then just like recently I'm like, and I've said this before on the podcast, I may be like in a non-person of color's day, the only person that they have a full-on conversation with. Like, that's important to me.
That's true. Yeah.
That's important to me. Like, maybe they run into someone at work and they're like, oh, hey, you know, Gerardo, like, hey, what's up? You know, whatever, right? And they have like a 2-minute conversation, like, how's your weekend, etc. But that's not a real conversation. Right? So it has been important to me here when I started coaching, like a lot of people that are maybe don't associate with people of color, or they won't have a full-on conversation. Like, to me, that was very important for me. So to bring my background, my, you know, story, my perspective to their day, even if they don't change their mind about anything, right? Just if they're like, I'm going to Costco, and be like, oh, I'm going to Jimenez, right? Like, just to do those little things so they realize, like, my life's different than theirs, right? And so I wasn't attending these meetings because I honestly was just overwhelmed with the code switching, with the fact that our problems are not the same, with the fact that my struggles as a gym owner are very different because A, I'm a female, and B, I'm a Latina. And, you know, like, overall, it's just different. But then a month ago, I'm like, you know what? Like, what am I doing here? Like, sure, it's very tedious, this 1 hour of my day in my week. It's tough. But again, I may be the only person of color that they talk to all day, or maybe all week. Even our moderator's a white person. Do you know what I mean? Like, that is important to me. Right? Like, I took a screenshot the other day and I sent it to somebody because I'm just like, these are the people I'm on this call with. Balding, older, white men that have no idea what my life is like and probably couldn't have no clue. But if I'm able to just say like 5 sentences so that they understand that my issues are different, my life is different, that me being a gym owner is actually pretty freaking awesome under the circumstances. To me, that's important. And so even though it is a grueling hour of my day, this call where I'm like, oh, like, okay, like, let me get the energy to do this. It's important. So if anyone at some point throughout their day, and I'm not saying be loud with it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you don't have to be.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to be. Norma's actually not loud at all.
No.
She is like very like super quiet in class, and when someone says something, she is freaking on it. She was like, okay, hold on. Well, do you know about the 1960, you know, whatever. And so if you're able to just say one thing that gives your perspective, because your perspective is unique, that's important. And
yes.
that in cases change.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And I think that it's funny because I had to do a panel conversation a couple weeks ago with at UIC as a panelist. And part of like what I hear is also like, oh, she's young, she doesn't have a lot of experience like in leadership, blah blah. And it's like, yeah, but I may not have a lot of that experience, but I have a lot of that lived experience that I don't care what degree you have, you can't teach my lived experience. And that's like period. And it's like we have so many people in positions of power that have all this experience and are messing up. So it's like you can't rationalize that, right? Like you can't just tell someone that they don't have a lot of experience when you don't know what their lived experience can provide. You know that, and so it's like continue to like speak up your life perspective, because that really does matter. And I think that at the end of the day, you don't know who's listening, and that's like the beauty of it, because there's gonna be that person that's gonna listen, and that might change their life.
Correct 100%. All right, tell us what we can do. How can we support you? How can we, you know, because this podcast will be out later this week.
Yes.
So what, maybe like 4 days before the election, something like that.
As long as it's before the election.
And so like, what can we do to A, support you, and B, where can we vote?
Yeah. So right now you can actually vote in 10 different places in our district. So if you live, you can vote in Melrose Park. It doesn't matter where you live, but you can vote in Melrose Park, Bellwood, Maybrook Center. Also, well, you don't, that's in Proviso. But if you live in Oak Park, obviously the Oak Park Township Center, you can vote there. And also with Leiden, they have like different polling places. But I know a lot of like my Melrose peeps. Please go to Melrose Park and vote for me. Tell your tias, tios, primos that don't ever vote. Take them, drag them with you, because this is really important to our community. Yes. I also, if there's anyone that would like to volunteer and canvass with me or help me on election day, would be really, really huge too. I have like 120 precincts to cover, so I need a lot of bodies. But I'm hoping that, you know, we've been getting a lot of volunteers for election day, so I'm hoping that can get better, but I could use more help. And if anybody wants to drop off palm cards or flyers, I could use that support too. And donations. We're still a grassroots campaign, so the area and district that I have is really huge, so campaign materials are so expensive. So yeah, so any kind of donations would be really helpful too.
Awesome.
But vote for me. Voting day is April 6th, so definitely make sure you vote beforehand or on April 6th.
I always want to vote before. I never do it. I always vote the day of. The day of. Doesn't matter what election. I'm like, oh, I'm busy, but I got to make my time to vote. I don't know why I don't do it beforehand, honestly.
I haven't voted for myself yet, though, so I'm like, this is going to be weird. It's so weird seeing my name in signs.
That's awesome, though.
I know. It's like super weird. I'm like, oh, shit.
Norma, what's the number we're looking for a win?
Like how many votes?
Yeah, like votes we need.
Oh, I think I need
people,
18,000 votes.
Okay.
So it's a lot of people. I don't know that many. I know I haven't reached out to 18,000 people, so that's why it's like a very. I'm hoping social media comes through, because we haven't had social media before. So sharing stuff is really a big deal. Sharing things is a huge deal. So definitely sharing. Because I have a lot of endorsements, they're also sending out blast emails endorsing me. So I think that's going to be really helpful. But yeah, any kind of like just sharing, outreaching.
But the point is voting.
Yes.
Voting.
And you just say social media, so where does that?
Yeah, you can find me at social media. It's Norma for Triton, and that's the number 4. And I'm on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. It's funny because I've gotten some Twitter tweets. I don't even have a Twitter, but I'm like, oh my God, I'm getting tweeted. So it's really exciting. And then I have my website too. It's normafortriton.com, and again, that's the number 4. And it's in English and Spanish, because your girl does know Spanish.
What's up? Espanol.
Yes, beautiful.
So yeah,
that's awesome.
All right, thank you so much for coming on, Norma.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so proud of you. Yes, please drop off some stuff here. Feel free.
Oh yeah, I should.
And yeah, I cannot wait. Please, you know what? Like, I think that overall the bigger issue is like getting people to vote.
Yeah.
We're a big voting family. Like my family votes for freaking anything that happens.
Good.
But like when people don't vote, I'm like, what the heck? Like what?
I know your one privilege, right?
Yeah, like it is exactly.
It is a privilege.
It is a privilege to vote, and so for people when they're like, oh, I don't vote, like it makes no difference.
I know, it makes me cringe.
I cringe, but I'm like, it is an actual privilege to vote. Women are not allowed to vote.
Yes.
For a very long time. And I have to think, because I have to consider myself a person of color, like Native Americans were not allowed to vote until the 70s.
That's wild.
That was 50 years ago. Like someone's parents were not allowed to vote. And so like when you have the opportunity to vote for anything, I will freaking vote.
Yes.
So please guys, like understand that is the broader issue where yes, we have been systematically oppressed and there are systems in place, generally speaking, so that we can understand a little bit better, so that we don't vote, so that we don't care, so that we feel like it doesn't pertain to us. But that's just how it's set up. But being able to vote is a privilege.
Yeah.
There are so many places you cannot vote.
Yes.
Where people are like, oh, only speak English. I'm like, well, in Afghanistan, where you people consider a third world country, people speak 3 languages minimum for the most part. So let's step it up.
Right.
Level up.
Yeah. And then you see like voter suppression is a real thing. So it's like, it's happening right now in the South where they're trying to even have like the current Jim Crow era and trying to cut voting regulations. So I think that living in Illinois is an even bigger privilege because you don't have like leadership trying to dismantle your voting rights. So vote, like for more reason you have to vote, and you have the right leadership here. So
yes,
vote for me, please. It's a huge deal. I've been working my ass off.
She has.
So your vote will matter.
Yeah. But all right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for coming in, Norma, and educating us. And all right, guys. If you have anything left to say, George?
18,000, guys. Let's go.
18,000.
Get those numbers up.
All right.
Peace.
Bye.
Thank you.